Jeff Green is a billionaire commercial real estate developer that recently went on Fox and was talking about the commercial real estate crash that is coming. And it's interesting because he has a building that is currently under construction right now, which I know what you're thinking. If it's such a terrible time for commercial real estate, then why is he building a commercial building? So I'll talk about that in this video, and also why he'll probably end up being okay, while other commercial developers and office space building owners will be falling by the wayside. And we'll also talk about the implications that this has for the housing market as a whole, because you're going to see some overlap in the themes between commercial real estate and residential housing, even though they are drastically different scenarios that are occurring in both these sectors right now. And if you're tuning in for the first time and haven't already, please make sure you subscribe to the channel to stay up to date on the latest in housing market trends and how you can make money investing in real estate. And please smash that like button for the algorithm. It's a great way you can support the channel, and it is much appreciated. So in this video, we're talking about commercial real estate, specifically office buildings. Now, in case you're wondering why this is tanking, chances are you already know, because it's somewhat obvious. Because how many people do you know today that actually go into work in an office still? Since 2020, a lot of businesses have pivoted and people now work from home either full-time or at least on a part-time basis, which means that more and more businesses have less of a need for office space. I know that this is true personally for our company, but we have always worked from home because I have always thought that dragging my employees into the office on a daily basis was just a waste of time and gas. And a lot of businesses have realized that having people come into the office isn't as important as they once thought that it was. Therefore, there is less demand for office space than there has ever been before. And I'll link the video in the description so you can watch the full interview with Jeff Green for yourself later. And the reason that the commercial real estate space in particular is so affected is not just because the fact that there is a much lower demand for office space, but it's also because a lot of investors and commercial developers buy commercial real estate with short-term floating interest rate debt. And what this means is that unlike a traditional home buyer that buys a home with a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, for example, commercial developers instead buy these properties on a 5-year or 7-year ARM or a floating rate mortgage that changes every single time the Fed changes interest rates. And think of it like this. Imagine you are buying an office building, but on a credit card, and then suddenly your credit card rate goes up by 5% at the end of the month. This is why a lot of commercial real estate developers are basically up shit creek, because they are buying these properties on variable rate mortgages, which means their expenses are going up drastically with these interest rate hikes. And this is also why Jeff Green will probably be okay, because the interest rate on his mortgage is 0% because he paid cash. Now, this is a very unconventional method of purchasing commercial real estate, but if you watch the interview, he explains that it's just because he's in that phase of his life where he's retired and he only does projects that he can do with his own funds on a cash basis. And fortunately, since he's a billionaire, he has plenty of cash to do those kinds of deals with. And in addition, one of the things he talks about is that his buildings are prime real estate and located in prime areas that are newly built. And at the end of this video, there'll be a link to another video that talks about some of the things that I look for in an investment property anytime I'm looking to buy something. And anyone in real estate will tell you location is always your money maker, because that's what creates the most demand. And you may be wondering, okay, that's great, but how is this going to affect the residential housing market, and where's the correlation there? Now, there's a couple videos that I just posted recently that talk about the lock-in effect and why housing prices are crashing much slower than expected. But one of the parallels is that investor purchases made up a huge chunk of home purchases in 2020 and 2021. And this is because most investors, even in residential purchases, do not purchase with cash. They almost always buy homes using debt. And unfortunately for some, a lot of them don't buy these homes using a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, but instead they buy them with a floating rate mortgage or a 3 to 5 year fixed note, for some example. And some of them even have balloon payments, just like these commercial developers. So what happens now when these investors can't refinance or turn a profit is basically forced selling. So all these investors that bought these properties back when they were making money 2 years ago when rates were low are now stuck in a situation where they're losing money on a property every single month and they are now forced to sell. And this brings me to my point about why the housing market isn't crashing yet. And a lot of you, myself included, would have expected larger price declines by now. Yet in recent months, we've had price increases in some markets and a drastic slowdown in price reductions. And if you're wondering what fueled this, the primary cause has been low inventory. Now, this is what caused a massive run up in prices in 2020 and in 2021. However, the difference is that 2 years ago, interest rates were at 3% and prices were about 30% lower on average. And if you fast forward today, the average mortgage interest rate is over 7% and home prices have not adjusted to pre-pandemic levels yet. Now, one of the things that is the most alarming in this interview is that they point out that office space vacancy rates are essentially at all-time highs, even higher than they were in 2010 in the middle of the Great Recession, which is a pretty ominous warning if you ask me. And what's interesting is that when Jeff Green was later interviewed, he was asked if this was the market's bloodiest moment, to which he responded,
"Not even close." I mean, when you think about it, Liz, look, we had the most aggressive fiscal and monetary stimulus program in history. And we're still living off of that. People have rented office spaces because they were getting the extra trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars in the economy that were pumped in the last few years.
And what Jeff is talking about right now is the fact that this huge run up in real estate prices was fueled by the same thing that fueled 2008, and that was cheap, easy money. And this guy is a billionaire and has made his fortune by buying real estate at market lows. And he's saying we're not even near a bottom, especially in the commercial sector. So if your realtor or broker is trying to tell you that we're not headed for a crash and prices are only going up and they want you to FOMO into buying a house right now, do not get hustled. The truth is that the smartest guys and gals in the room right now are saying to head for the hills. And Barbara Corcoran opened up the interview saying just that.
A lot of the different funds have come out now and they're late on their mortgage payments to their lenders, and that's not a good sign. I don't see that turning around. I think it's going to be a bit of a bloodbath before it gets better.
So in summary, the housing market is still crashing and this party is just getting started. So do not let anyone FOMO you into buying a house right now, because the writing is on the wall. The low interest rate, cheap money, stimulus fueled housing boom is over. And over the next few years, we're going to have to pay the piper, but there will be plenty of buying opportunities. So do not let this get you discouraged, because the truth is that times like this is when the greatest fortunes are made. And if you haven't done so already, please make sure you smash that like button and subscribe to the channel so that you can stay up to date on the latest in housing market trends. And let me know what you think in the comment section below. Do you think we're headed for a recession? What do you think about all the data points that are pointing to a housing market crash? And when you're posting a comment, let me know which market you're in so that I can put out data that's specific to your market. And as promised earlier, right now there's another video popping up on the screen, so make sure you check that out if you haven't watched it already. And thanks again for tuning in.